Okay, here we go. We have another episode of Jungle Jargon Live. That doesn't sound very good. An episode of Jungle Jargon that might give me flashbacks or something. Anyway, so yeah, we got a video to watch, at least part of it. Dr. Kurt Wise in his floating log mats. So it doesn't seem like a very strong argument to me, but he is trying to explain how animals got from one place to another after the global flood. And he's including some sea life, how it got and where it was going. I wouldn't be so concerned with the sea life, even though some of that too would be kind of hard to explain, but they could have just got separated in the flood because of its sea life. They could have just got separated. But see if we got everything going here. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and present. And let's go to the videotape. See, I got spider webs on my microphone. Anyways, let's go ahead and listen to some of Dr. Kurt Wise's explanations here. He just got done talking about Spirit Lake. There was floating logs on Spirit Lake, and he's got this idea of post-flood rafting, log mats floating around the ocean. So let's see what he has to say here.
Such a thing as that. So if that rafting model is true, if it really was true, that there was floating mats of vegetation, floating log mats that organisms could make their way across the ocean on, then perhaps that could explain some things that are kind of weird in the present world that are otherwise cannot be explained. For example, we have
that otherwise cannot be explained, and that presents a problem for the young Earth creation, global flood explanation. Unless the continents broke up after the global flood, then everything is explained.
Terrestrial organisms on either side of ocean bodies that are only found at those two locations on opposite sides of the body, and not in places where it's either. So the organisms don't seem to be moving around the ocean body and getting to the other location, perhaps prevented by a different climate. But we have very strange distribution, what we call disjunct populations of the same organism on opposite sides of oceans, that maybe this would explain. Now, it would seem that it would explain it if the two disjunct populations are separated by a modern ocean current that runs from one to the other. So let's look at a few examples. There are a number of disjunct populations called austral disjunct populations that are actually between Australia and South America, sometimes also with pieces of Antarctica. Here's an example of a beech tree, Nophagus, that is found only, and the only place in the world this genus is found, is in eastern Australia, western South America, and a projection in Antarctica. And there is...
Okay, that's a beech tree, which wouldn't have been on the ark, but it doesn't seem like too much of a problem for me. Just depends on how the plants were distributed. You know, and that wouldn't be a problem too much. But keeping in mind, all these were connected. Australia was connected to South America by way of India and Africa and Antarctica as well. But let's see if we go fast forward to a place where he's showing all these different organisms. Some of these, he says, are hard to explain. Yeah, these are hard to explain, right? See some of these that are hard to explain. But I'm more interested in the land animals that got off the ark. Most of these are... There was an example of rhinoceroses that were in Africa and Asia, it looked like. But like like this one, for example, here. Where is it here? This, remember, these would be connected, so there wouldn't be a problem. This Africa is connected up here to the continental shelf up here, this part of Africa, and this part of Africa is connected to this part of South America. Right here, fits right in here, and this fits up into the continental shelf here of the eastern United States. So this is, let me see, no, Cystocera.
Freshwater fish example. The cichlids are a very famous fish family, often found in aquaria. They're found in South America, and
yeah, cichlids are marine or water life, but they're freshwater fish. That wouldn't be a problem if they were connected. If Africa and South America were connected, then you could have cichlids on both sides. But what I'm interested is there's a lot of animals that he did not mention, and that is, there's a whole range of animals unique to South America that are basically nowhere else except, well, there's New World camels, New World monkeys, strange rabbit-like creatures that hop, and a whole range of animals, a lot of animals we don't even know about. And there's an animal like the honey badger in Africa. Well, in Africa it's the honey badger, but in South America it's called the greater Grison. It's the same animal. How did it get to South America? Did it surf like the monkey with the monkeys, or how did that happen? Well, he would like to explain it by floating log mats on currents, but it's that couldn't explain jaguars separating from lepers, and might explain the crocodiles, the American crocodiles separating from the African crocodiles. But I think it'd be easier to just say that they just broke apart and got separated. Just so much easier. See what else there is, if there's anything else. There's so many different examples of things. I don't know.
Soon after the flood.
Oh,
We've got another example from among the insects, midge. We've got some snail, some mussels here, some freshwater.
Yeah, the insects I'm not worried about because I don't think they had to be on the ark. I don't think they were on the ark. And the snails, probably not either. But, of course, you got freshwater snails and saltwater snails. I mean, they wouldn't be able to pass. Maybe on a floating mat if there's enough fresh water. But, again, it's much easier explained by these continents being joined together, keeping in mind that there's fossils in these layers on both sides, the same fossil on both sides, besides the fact there's actually dinosaur tracks that are on both sides, the same dinosaur tracks apparently in South America and Africa in sediment layers. And the dinosaur didn't start walking and end up walking in South America, besides the fact that it's in sediment layers anyways. It had to have been separated after the sediment layers were deposited, which is the whole thing about the fossils. They had to have been separated after they were deposited. because otherwise they wouldn't, there wouldn't be not only, but it's plant fossils, it's animal fossils, it's living animals that are separated. For example, there's something he didn't mention are tapirs. You have tapirs in South America. You have tapirs in Asia. They're both tapirs, but one's Asian tapir and the other one's a South American tapir. That each one adapted to their environments. So how did that happen? If they got off the ark in Mesopotamia, one went one way, one went the other way. Yeah, that's okay if South America was connected to Africa. If not, you can't explain the tapirs in South America, just like you can't explain the jaguars or the greater Grisons or even the possums, where they try to make us call them opossums in South America and America, because we've got possums in America too. But I don't mind if anybody just calls it a possum, because it's a possum anyways. It's the same animal, right? It's just maybe a little bit uglier. The ones we have in South America are really ugly. The ones in North America are not so ugly, but the ones in Asia or Australia or whatever, they're a little bit cuter than the ones we got over here in America. But still a possum, Same thing. Just adapted to the environment where it's found. And of course, it's Madagascar. Got isolated. And of course, you got the glacial striations in India. That's almost on the equator. And you got glacial striations in India from the time when it was connected to Antarctica, because South Africa has them too, and South America has them, and Australia has them. Australia over here has glacial striations from when it was connected to India, to Africa, to South America, to Antarctica. So it's much easier explained that way than any other way, especially when the Bible says the earth was divided in the days of Peleg. The earth broke apart in the days of Peleg. When it goes through, you can watch the video yourself. It's probably get more out of it than me showing this like this. Here, maybe this is the rhino. Let's see if this is the rhino.
The India Ocean, we have
fish.
Connections between Africa and India and Southeast Asia and Indonesia. And there are good currents that connect those locations all the way into Australia. There's another example from some freshwater snails, freshwater mussels, a snake family that's found in those multiple continents there. Some birds, they think that maybe even though some birds.
Yeah, there's many snakes and birds that could be in both places as well, sparrows and stuff. But you could argue maybe that they were carried, some of them, but not all of them.
Birds can actually fly very long distances. There are others that stay within a continent and don't cross bodies of water, and their distribution could be explained by this rafting mechanism. Rhinos, rhinoceroses in two locations, probably transported.
See, that's a rhinoceros and the elephants, but of course, elephants, they probably had them all over here, but I guess he's thinking it won't cross the desert, but it wasn't always a desert, and they had trade from throughout these places all the time too, which could explain it, but doesn't have to explain it, because it's just well, they were connected. They could have, the climate would have been very different, of course. And they just separated. One went to Asia and one went to Africa, the elephants. But the tapirs are hard to explain. I'm pretty sure he doesn't mention the tapirs.
If they're doing it on rafts, they're probably small rhinoceroses or young ones. The dwarf elephants that ultimately produce, and later after the flood, produce the larger elephants that are found in Africa and Southeast Asia. Some lemurs in both positions, some pangolins in both positions. We have a number of examples of disjunct populations that could actually be explained by.
Yeah, lemurs and pangolins, yeah, they could be explained probably. Well, especially before the continents broke apart, the climate would have been different, very, very much, very different.
By this rafting model. Now, at the same time, there are a few, not very many, but there are some disjunct populations that don't seem to be explainable by this rafting mechanism. We have, for example, one caddisfly genus which is found in eastern North America and easternmost Asia. Obviously, there's not an ocean in between here. That at least the currents that would be taking them from one place to another. There's actually several easternmost U.S. and China connections. Here's a salamander family that's found in both places. In Magnolia, the genus Magnolia, that's very popular in this southeast. Catalpa, sassafras, all of these genera are only found in southeastern United States and sometimes into the Caribbean, and then in China.
Well, some of them, like see, I'm not fond of the insects or being on the ark, or wouldn't agree with the insects or the salamanders being on the ark anyways, but they just would have separated. Even whatever was on the ark would have just gone two different directions or separated. It's not a problem because all the land is all connected, or was all connected before it broke apart. 100 years after the global flood. So seems to me that the better explanation is that the continents were all connected for 100 years after the global flood, and then they broke apart. To me, that's a much better explanation because it explains so much. It explains all the mammoths and, lions, bears, wolves, everything that was buried by tsunamis and or frozen up here, the mammoths and the mastodons, both places, and it explains so much. Whereas if you had the breakup happen during the flood, it doesn't even explain why the sediment layers line up and the fossils and the plants and everything between the continents. Especially after the flood, the animals after the flood, how did they get to South America? It's not explained. Plus, there's a lot of extinct animals too that arrived in America, probably North and South America both, that there's no way for them to get over here because I don't think the floating map explains how that many animals arrived in America
And surrounding areas. And it's with the simple rafting model I talked about, this is not easily explained. There is a possibility that I'm working on at this point that there was actually a seaway that ran through here immediately after the flood that got closed, and it could be, as I work on this, I might find that there's good reason to believe there was a current that would have actually connected easternmost North America with Central Asia and even Eastern Asia. So that's research to be pursued in the future. Paddlefish, one of my favorite fishes, paddlefish in the Mississippi.
Magnolia, yeah, we have paddlefishes here. But the magnolia, the trees, I don't think would be a problem because that's just wherever they got dispersed, wherever they landed. They could easily get separated, the plants, because I'm pretty sure the plants and the trees weren't on the ark. But the paddlefish is interesting, but again, that's really not a problem because they would have ended up where they ended up because it's sea life anyways. The only problem being is, the oceans weren't as salty as they are today, but there was probably, like he says, a lot of pockets of fresh waters, and they just ended up in two different places. I don't think that's a problem.
There's another, the same genus is found in China. There's some crustaceans that are found in Japan and Europe. And again, would be difficult in the simple rafting model, but perhaps would be explained by a modified rafting model that we're working on in the future. Frog family in both locations, China and Europe. Freshwater crustacean example here, a family found in India and Japan. Freshwater crustacean family. Now this is a little bit weird in a different sense, although this one might be explainable. By this rafting principle, we've got Australia and South Africa that are connected by a current, and then there is a current that comes off of Australia, comes up into the northern part of the Indian Ocean. It might explain the distribution of these freshwater crustaceans in India and the southern.
Again, the marine life, I wouldn't even worry about it, how it got to where it was. They just ended up where they ended up after the global flood. But anyways, just want to point out some of these things here. Of course, you can watch the video yourself and get more out of it, maybe. But I don't think the rafting model does a good job. Here he's talking about gates, and you don't need gates if it's all connected. You know, you don't need passageways or floating rafts or anything because they're all connected. Okay, this is different theories of the past. Of course, you wouldn't need them if everything's connected, and which, to me, all the evidence shows that everything was connected. You can even see here South America is almost connected to Antarctica as it is. You can see it just opened up for the water to flow through there between South America and Antarctica. But again, there's glacial striations in South America and Africa and India and Australia from the time they were all connected to Antarctica, which the glacier striations are on top of the sediments deposited by the global flood, which then broke apart. I mean, I don't know how you could explain it any other way. Because first you have to deposit the sediment layers, and then they have to break apart. And before they broke apart, they had glaciers on top of them, on top of the sediment layers, like a seal, showing us that they were all connected to Antarctica. But I guess that's about it for right now. It's good enough for right now, I think, hopefully. See what we do here. Hope everybody's doing good. I've been making a few little short videos. Some of them are entertaining, some of them are interesting. Maybe you can check them out too if you want. But hopefully I'm going to get started going a little bit better here, get more organized and stuff, and brush the cobwebs off of my microphone and stuff, because I'm going to be retired next month, so then I'll be able to do more, be fully retired. I'll be running around places, maybe, depending on how long my health holds up. You know, it's always up and down. Health is always up and down. Anyways, so just whatever we're able to do is all by the hand of God anyways. So anyway, God bless everybody. Hope everybody has a great week this week, and everybody get out and vote. Of course, because our future depends on it. We can't have communists taking over the country or anything like that. So your vote counts. So everybody take care. God bless everybody, and have a great week. And don't forget Tuesday, November 5th. It's very important. God bless. Take care.